Pyrotechnics is proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal magazine. 164 pages packed full of interviews, reviews, and features all about your favourite genres of music. Our latest edition is available from our website, fireworks-magazine.com, or visit your local WH Smiths or McCall's. UK subscriptions are now just £32 for 4 issues. Fireworks Rock and Metal magazine, for enthusiasts, by enthusiasts.
Welcome back to the annual episode of Pyrotechnics, the rock and metal music podcast that looks at the relevant and irrelevant side of the genres we love. I'm the host with the most, Pete Arnett. Obviously, the most hasn't been defined on purpose, so add in your own jokes. With me to make up our trio of unwise men, I have our resident metal expert and editor of the finest rock and metal magazine on the planet, Mr. Dave Cockett. Welcome, Dave.
Hello, everyone. Pleased to meet you all again.
And I'm also joined by the greatest art editor this side of Van Gogh, Mr. James Gaydon, who is also our resident rock expert. Welcome, James.
Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in again.
I jest, of course, about the annual episode part, but we do offer our apologies that this has been a tad bit longer than we had hoped. We've got no excuses apart from being busy with the magazine. Issue 111 will be open for pre-sale very soon. So basically, we're just going to go ahead and blame Dave for this one. However, we have been speaking about it, and we will be getting these out every month, if not sooner. To make this a reality, we've actually implemented a musical punishment system. If James lets us down, he has to listen to Ronnie Romero on repeat for 24 hours. If Dave does the same, it's Love Cop by 𝗲𝗏 on repeat. And if it's me, it's the torture that most people will probably shudder at. That's right, Oasis on repeat, 24 hours. Oh my God. Enough to send a shiver down any human spine, I think. Right, now all that claptrap's out of the way, let's get on with the good stuff. It's the quiz question time. I'm going to give these two a question to ponder over the next 80 to 90 minutes to allow them to show off their knowledge. At the moment, I believe it's 2-2. So who's going to go in the lead, or will it be a damp squid as both embarrass themselves horribly? So then, gentlemen, listen up. Which rock or metal group has had the most #1 albums in the Billboard album charts in the USA? Your choices are Led Zeppelin, Metallica, the Rolling Stones, U2, or the Eagles. So that's Led Zeppelin, Metallica, the Rolling Stones, U2, or the Eagles. I can see James is merrily writing it down and Dave's trying to get those grey cells working.
#1 albums.
#1 albums, yeah.
#1.
Oh, no, they're both writing it down now. Dave's giving up on the little grey cells, I think.
Because if I don't write them down now, I'll remember 3 of them. I won't remember 5.
Oh, just looking for a crayon, Pete. You're all right. I'm not allowed out sharp in it.
Oh, fair enough. Anyway, so for all the purists that are merrily yelling at me, it's the Beatles, you imbecile. You're absolutely right. It was. The Beatles had the most #1 hits on the Billboard chart. But I've taken them out because we have this argument about where the Beatles actually fit into our niche, obviously rock and metal. So I've removed them. And to be fair, they pretty much hold this record in every single bloody country going. So it would have been a fairly crap quiz if I'd included them in. So the guys would have got it straight away. So for this point, the Beatles, well and truly not remembered in that respect. But you are right. They had an awful lot of #1s. Let's just put it that way. And the information that gives us the answers for this has been taken from www.billboard.com. So if it is wrong, you can blame them and not me. Right, now it's views on the news. So it's time to have a gander at some of the news stories that have been published on our website, fireworks-magazine.com, that have caught my eye. And let's see what the guys make of them. We might get a wall of silence from them. I'm doubting it, but you never know. So the first one is Jack J. Hutchinson announcing a new autumn tour and a new live album. We've got Wolfgang Van Halen's Mammoth. We've returned with Robert Rodriguez's directed video and obviously the single The End. And if you've seen the video, it is pretty awesome, I've got to admit. It is absolutely brilliant. Dave's giving me the thumbs up, so I have a sneaking suspicion he's going to have something to say about this. Within Temptation have released a 23-minute documentary called The Invisible Force. That's going to come out on May the 6th. Again, been looking to have a bit of a sneak peek, and it's fantastic. Shinedown have announced an intimate acoustic show in London, and one that is going to get Dave excited again. The Alice Cooper Group have reunited after 50 years for a new album. So I'm going to be wrong. I'm going to let James actually start on this one. So, James, anything there that's grabbing your fancy?
The Alice Cooper one, honestly, because when I did, I was lucky enough to interview Neil Smith not so long ago, because he had an album of his, a solo album that was done in the early 70s that's finally had a proper vinyl issue, and I was given the job of doing the sleeve notes for it. And I got to interview him for that so he could tell the story. But obviously it sort of picked up from the Alice Cooper band eventually like disintegrating. And he was real. He wasn't bitter like a lot of people could have been about a big successful band breaking up. And he was like, oh no, we all kept in touch and we played on each other's records. And he'd said then that he was hoping that the original guys, or what was left of them, could get together and make a new album. He says, I think we've definitely got another album in us. I thought, oh, that'd be cool, but I didn't really pay it an awful lot of attention. I was like, yeah, most people say that. So for it to have actually have happened, I think it's cool. And I have heard one of the tracks. I mean, I think Dave's a much bigger Alice Cooper fan than I am, but I would think most people would be pretty happy with what they've heard.
Yeah, I'd go along with that, James. Certainly, it was a very pleasant surprise. Let's face it. I mean, Alice himself doesn't need to do it, but what he does prove is that what he said all along, that there was no animosity, never any when they split up, when they went their separate ways, when he did his Welcome to My Nightmare solo album. So all credit to him. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. And like you say, the song very much has that sort of Killers type of feel to it. And given that Muscle of Love, the last Alice Cooper band album, was 50 odd years ago, and I won't say a letdown, but was never going to overachieve after $1 Billion Babies. I'm hoping that that they're just going to come and that go out on a high, if you like. Let's face it, it's not going to be a 10-album run, is it?
No.
At their ages, but I'm pretty keen to find out what are they going to do. Are they going to take it on tour? Alice would have no problem. It's the rest of them that you have to worry about. And one of the nice things that I found is that they've actually included some of Glenn Buxton's guitar work. Yeah. From 10, 15 years ago, 15 years ago, I think it said. So that's a nice touch. Yeah. But no, there was some interesting things in there, Pete. You mentioned Mammoth, or Mammoth WVH, as they call them over here. Yeah, that track's awesome. That if the rest of the album's like that, it'll be his best yet. And the two that he's done so far have been no slouches. So yeah, looking forward to that. Jack J. Hutchinson, yeah, an up-and-coming artist. On the downside, Shinedown doing an acoustic. Really? I'm not the biggest fan of acoustic shows, albums of any description. After about 10 minutes, I found myself chewing my leg off. I'll give you an example. We went to see 𝗕𝗃 in Manchester last year, and there were supposed to be two bands supporting, one of which was Damien Wilson, who was been the Threshold singer on and off over the years. And he was supposed to be doing something like a 20-minute acoustic set. Turns out on the day that for one reason or another, the band were in the middle, couldn't make it for one reason or another. I forget who it is now, much to my chagrin. But what that meant was that he ended up doing nearly an hour of an acoustic set. Now, Damien's got a powerful voice, got an unforgettable voice. So restrained and in an acoustic thing, it did absolutely nothing for me, really. What really proved that point is that when 𝗕𝗃 came on, later he came on and he duetted for a song or two. And it was just awesome to listen to. So it really was the difference between blah, blah, blah acoustic stuff and proper full-on metal. So when it says anybody's doing an acoustic shows, my eyes usually hit the ceiling and I head for the nearest door, I'm afraid. I'm sorry, Pete, I can't remember. What was the other one?
Within Temptation, the Invisible Force documentary.
Oh, yeah. They're always interesting. Sharon's always got something to say. So, yeah. That's something to look forward to as well. So, yeah, quite a good roundup there.
Oh, thank you very much.
What about you?
Me? Well, the Wolfgang thing, I mean, it was Robert Rodriguez's name that piqued my interest with that one, because I've seen a few of his films, and I must admit, I thought the video was superb.
Brilliant, wasn't it?
Like you say, the song, it's one of those few videos that does actually match the song. You know what I mean, so it was superb. And again, the Alice Cooper stuff picked my ear, because obviously you and I went to the gig of his in Leeds. It's going to be a unique couple of months, I think, for music. It's shaping up nicely again, so we'll have to see. But yeah, for loads more news, as we keep saying, check out the website, fireworks-magazine.com. We try and add as much as we can on umpteen times a day, so just keep checking it out. You know, there's loads of stuff there. There's blues rock, progressive, metal, rock, emo stuff, you name it, it's probably there somewhere. You just have to find it and enjoy it. Right, we're going to move on now to the 60-second sound off. We all know that these two chaps like to have a good rant on this show, and it gives them a chance to vent their feelings at someone or something musical for a minute. Now, one of my co-hosts will achieve this without any difficulty whatsoever. The other one, however, we could still be here next Tuesday. So first up is James, and his 60 seconds is on the premature declarations of Album of the Year. So let me just stick 60 seconds on the timer, and off you go, James.
So we put out issue 110, and I saw several reviews going, surely a contender for Album of the Year. I'm like, just hold on a minute. When we printed that was the beginning of March. So we wrote that the back end of February. It's fucking February. Don't be saying it's the Album of the Year when there's all right. So we feature like 200 albums every issue. So even if we get to like the last issue of the year, that means at least another 600 albums have come through the doors, and people are going to say, "Oh, this was Album of the Year in February." No, give it a fucking chance. Half the people who are saying this is Album of the Year are now raving about Ghost. So just turn it in and name your Album of the Year in December, not in February. There we go. How's that?
34 seconds. Pretty impressive there, James. Oh, I shouldn't laugh, but the reason why I am is because I'm probably one of them that did it as well. So,
yeah, you were, actually.
That was what shame on me. That was for Lordy, if memory serves. Yeah. It is a damn good album, though.
The reason why I'm annoyed at it is not just because of how much music there is still to come, but even I've done it myself. I did it once in, I think it was like September, October, and I was like, that's pretty safe. And I'd said, I'm pretty sure it was Chicken Foot had caught, and I was like, there won't be a better album than that. And then Foreigner put one out, and I thought the Foreigner one was better. So then I had to basically say in print, yeah, you know, when I said that was the best album of the year, it's not, I think it's this one. So now I wait until the end of the year, and then that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I've been a bit caught on that because I said Lordy was... Well, I did say it was a runner for Contender of the Year. I didn't say it was a Contender of the Year.
I think you're right, Pete. That's the thing. It's that there are some that come out that are pretty obvious that are albums for the year. You mentioned Ghost, James. New Ghost is brilliant. Yeah, it's going to be a contender for Album of the Year. Then again, so Dream Theater. But don't know what else is going to come out. There might be 1 and 2. There might be 4 and 5. Anybody that that gets beyond 4 and 5, it sort of mystifies me. I don't know how people can put together the top 40 albums of February or whatever. Who gives a top? But yeah, that know you come from the tendency. It's an easy thing to say that this is album of the year, and then make yourself look a tip further down the line.
Well, when you think about it, when you're reviewing albums by bands the caliber of Dream Theater, Alice Cooper, Ghost, all these different acts, when they put an album out, chances are it's going to be really good. It's not likely they're going to turn in an absolute turkey. So therefore, just by default, it's going to be a contender for Album of the Year.
Yeah.
So you really need, look at the end of the year, when we get to the December issue, look at all your playlists, look at what was in your, that's how I do it anyway. Because chances are, if it was in my playlist, it's still going to be in rotation.
Yeah.
And then it's to whittle down then. Like you say, I don't get how people can make a short list, in inverted commas, of 100 albums for a year. I haven't got the time for that. So, no, I'll name me 5, and that'll be that.
Yeah, I don't give a toss what's my 37th and 38th, so I don't expect anybody else to, I must admit.
I mean, you wouldn't hear a band, would you? You wouldn't hear a band saying, oh, yeah, do you remember my number 37 single? Nobody cares. If it wasn't top 10, it's not really a big deal.
Yeah.
There we go, listeners. James has laid down the law. No more saying it's album of the year until it's December. Otherwise, he's going to come and get you. Right then, now we turn our attention to Dave. Just before we start, though, has everyone got enough food and drink in the house? Yeah? Okie dokie.
Sleeping bags at the ready.
Yeah. Okay, we're good to go then.
Got 34 seconds on it.
Dave's 60 seconds annoyance is people on the internet dissing new albums after hearing just a few 30-second clips. So I've got 60 seconds for what it's worth on the stopwatch, and your time starts now, Dave.
Okay, yeah. We all look forward to hearing new albums. We get to hear more than we can possibly cope with. And it's great. It's got an upside as well as a downside. But what really pisses me off is you'll get somebody release 30-second clip or a song, And then you get people saying, "Nah, don't like that. That's rubbish. Not as good as such and such." Give the whole album a listen before you make your mind up. If you're that desperate for likes on the internet, go find something else to talk about. Stop wasting people's time. Stop dissing stuff before you've actually given it just. We as reviewers will take 3, 4, 5 listens before we even sit down with a pen and paper to start writing about them. At least give the band a chance to listen to it once, rather than just listening to 30 seconds and saying it's crap. Got it, Pete, to do it in an hour?
54
Definitely
seconds.
in an hour.
Seems like it.
6 seconds to spare there, Dave. You got enough for another?
Whoa, there you go. That must be a record.
Yeah, we'll roll over them 6 seconds to the next one just in case.
Yeah.
Well, I think he probably owes us, to be fair, James. I think there was one that went on for about several years.
Yeah.
To be fair, listeners, do you agree? I mean, I think that both chaps have got valid points. Yes, we do tend to wax lyrical about albums that could be album of the year very early on, and then look like a bunch of nunties when another one comes out. I mean, to be fair, I've fallen for it. I said that Lordi was possibly in the running, and now Billy Idol's releases one, and I think that's album of the year. So there you go. I've just got James glaring daggers at me now again for saying it. But Dave's right as well. People do quickly dismiss things on the internet after listening to a few clips, and it's not fair, and he's quite right. We should, in essence, sit down, listen to it all, and then make an informed decision. Not just write something off because of 30 seconds or 20 seconds or whatever. But do you agree with them? Do you think they're talking bollocks, or do you agree with what they're saying? You know, comment below, let us know. We want to hear your opinions on these things, you know, because it makes for a topic, it makes for debate. So if you agree with them, let us know. If you disagree with them, let us know. Somebody once actually agreed with James about flushing Robbie Williams down the toilet. So that does show you that people do listen and also agree with James, which I don't know which one's more frightening, to be fair with you, but hey-ho.
Gary Barlow.
Yes, he would. Yes, indeed. So, right, let's quickly move off that before the lawyers get involved. And now we'll go on to our main topic. In some respects, this length that it's taken us to do this episode has actually allowed us to watch how this drama's unfolded, you know, mainly into a massive shit show, in my humble opinion. So this episode, we're going to look at the reunion of Black Sabbath for their one-off gig at Villa Park on the 5th of July. It's called the Back to the Beginning show, and it's going to reunite Ozzy Osbourne, Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler and Bill Ward for the first time in over 2 decades. Now, supporting them in this concert is Metallica, Guns N' Roses, Tool, Slayer, Pantera, Gojira, Alice in Chains, Hailstorm, Lamb of God, Anthrax, Mastodon, and Rival Sons, plus performances from another 16 artists. It's been rumoured that all the artists and bands involved will sing a Black Sabbath song, so hopefully there's not going to be 25 plus versions of War Pigs performed. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long day. Now, gentlemen, it's a massive subject to cover, so we may have to skirt over a few of the questionable areas that have been thrust into our limelight. But straight from the beginning, when it was Sharon Osbourne announcing this gig at Villa Park, with a very uncomfortable Tony Iommi by her side, no one else from the band, which quite frankly seemed ridiculous to me, because I know I'm getting old, but I don't remember Mrs. O belting out many of their songs whatsoever. We've also got Ozzy's health, and please God, don't let this turn out to be a tribute concert or we're all screwed. The ticket debacle and ticket masters rolling it. To maybe 1 or 2 many supporting acts, and also this rumour about everyone's got to sing a Black Sabbath song. I think the latest thing I've heard is they're going to fly in Ozzy on a throne across the audience and then land him on the stage where he's going to sit for his 5 songs, and then God knows, you know, what's going to happen after that. To the fact he's going to be wheeled on stage in a mobile throne, parked right at the front of the stage, and again he's going to sing 5 songs. I mean, Dave, kick us off, drop some knowledge on us. What do you make of the entire thing?
Well, as you said from the very beginning, when it was first announced and you got Sharon Osbourne and Tony Iommi, my initial thought was this is Sharon's last pension fund grab. If you're going to do a tribute to Black Sabbath, and I get that, and in some regards, it feels like it will be a bit of a tribute with all the bands that they've got on, particularly if they're all going to play a Sabbath number. How long are they going to actually play? They're not going to do anything like a full set. They might do 1 or 2 of their own plus a Sabbath number. A bit like Live Aid in the 40 years ago. But if you're celebrating Black Sabbath or a Black Sabbath final reunion, I would like to have seen it as 2 things. Firstly, you're going to get Sabbath back together and you're going to do a full show with Sabbath. We all know that was never going to happen. Ozzy was never going to be fit enough to do a fraction of that, as it sort of transpired with all the rumours and counter rumours that have been circulating. I suspect neither would Bill Ward. Geezer and Tony, yeah, could cope with an hour and a half, 2 hours. The rest of them. So you're not going to get a full-blown Sabbath reunion in that regard. The next thing that I thought of, and we still don't know whether this is going to happen or there's been no publicity, we don't know which songs Sabbath are going to play with Ozzy, with anybody else. We don't know what the other bands that are on during the day are going to play. Are they just going to stick to Ozzy era Sabbath, or are we going to get some Dio, some Tony Martin? I suspect, given his involvement, that Dio, Tony Martin, etc., even Gillan will be dirty words. And you'll not hear Evan and Elle, you'll not hear this, you'll not hear that, which is a shame, really, because much as whether they like it or not, they're as much a part of the Sabbath legacy as anything that Ozzy did. Yeah. Yes, those first 5-6 albums with Ozzy pretty much defined the blueprint for what would become heavy metal. Get that? No, I've got no argument with that. But to then just ignore Evan and Elle, Mob Rules, Eternal Idol, Headless Cross, even Born Again, which, yes, James, it is kind of quite growing on me. Having listened to it again recently a few times. So it seems, I then come back to, if it's not going to celebrate all the Sabbath, just that one bit, it's not going to be a proper reunion. It's going to get a bunch of different bands and also Rants come in singing bits of songs. It just seems to be, then it's a rather expensive cash grab. And then you go on to, like you suggested, the whole debacle over tickets, the prices of these damn things. Yeah. Best thing I can say about it, anybody that's going, I know a couple of our writers are, good luck, hope it's a great day, Villa Park, hope it don't piss it down. That's the best thing I can say about it, really. It doesn't seem to be being conducted in the spirit of what it actually was purported to be. Yeah. I'd like to see the books after. How much went into Sharon's bank account? How much went into whichever charity's bank account? We shall see whether that happens.
And so we have to say that I think it's 4 charities, aren't there? They said that the proceeds will be split equally between the 4 charities.
Yeah, it's that definition of proceeds.
Lawyers, keep those pens down. But yes, I mean, it's a very valid point. It just seemed very strange that it suddenly popped up with Sharon and Tony making the announcement without the 4 members of the band, where you think, well, hang on a second, surely it's about Black Sabbath. I mean, that's what got me at first. I mean, the thing that also worries me, and I know James will obviously have a point on this as well, is, I mean, Ozzy is not in the best of health. And, you know, flying him over the stage just seems like a crazy thing to do. I mean, I know he's the Prince of Darkness. He can do everything. I get that. But the thing is, when all's said and done, he's an elderly gentleman who has not had the best of health. And it just seemed to be this, we're going to fly him over the stage, or we're going to wheel him up on the motorized throne. And yes, he might have to sit there for the entire act. It just seems a bit, yeah, you're there, Ozzy, we'll just do this with you, but just sing the songs, mate, and get over with it. This is for the band and all this malarkey. I mean, James, what do you think about all this?
Well, when it was first announced, my immediate reaction is this is going to be a disaster.
Yes.
The reason I say that is because I was lucky enough to be in the audience when Sabbath recorded the reunion album, which was quite a long time ago now. And they were great then, and they should have called it a day there, but they didn't. And obviously Ozzy's health has got worse and worse, and we all know about that. And when it all seemed a bit disingenuous, because it was like, Black Sabbath are going to do one more show, and people were all buying the tickets. And people like Dave, myself, and you, Pete, we all knew there's no way he's going to manage a full set. It's not going to be that. But there was people buying it. And then, of course, once the tickets have been sold, that's when they come out with the announcement that Ozzy's going to do bits and pieces. And there's people on the internet going, wait, what? I feel cheated. Well, more for you, but that is very disingenuous to do that. There's that many bands on the bill. It's kind of like the Freddie Mercury tribute when you had all these different acts and they're all going to do a little bit each. I get that, but not many of those bands excite me. I wouldn't be that bothered about hearing Lamb of God or whoever else was there. You know, it's Sabbath that's the draw, and you're not going to get much Sabbath. We all know that. Not only Ozzy's health, as Dave alluded, Bill Ward has pulled out a countless shows with Sabbath due to his health. He can't do a full set, so we're not going to get much Sabbath. We're supposed to be getting 5 Ozzy solo songs. Whether he can do 5 remains to be seen. I wouldn't be at all surprised if he's not miming, which would be appalling if he is. If he's not miming, I don't think he's going to sound very good. And to Dave's point about would the Dio era or the Tony Martin era or anything like that be represented? Yes, it should be, but I don't think it will, because I read a quote from Sammy Hagar the other day, because he's going to be performing there. Yeah. And Tom Morello is the musical director of this thing, which I find slightly bizarre in the first place. But he'd spoken to Sammy and said to Sammy, which song do you want to do? And Sammy had picked No More Tears, which is an Ozzy track. It's not a Sabbath track, it's an Ozzy track. And they were like, okay, cool. And then he called Sammy back and says, oh no, Ozzy wants to do that as one of his 5 songs. Can you pick something else? So Sammy's second choice was Flying High Again, which is another Ozzy track. It's not a Sabbath track. So what is this? Is it a tribute to Ozzy or a tribute to Sabbath?
Yeah.
Because if you're picking Ozzy solo songs, what's the Sabbath set even for?
I mean, a lot of people have said that as well, that it does seem to be more leaning towards Ozzy's than Black Sabbath, which, again, that's going to leave people cheated. I mean, it's bad enough as well that some of the tickets alone, I think, were going for £849 for the standing ones and over £1,000 for seated corporate things. I mean, how on earth is the average person on the street who makes up probably the majority of the Black Sabbath fan base meant to afford that? I mean, I know Ticketmaster said, it wasn't dynamic pricing. It was people having multiple tabs open that were forcing it. I mean, what a load of bollocks. Utter bollocks. It's them purely wanting profits. I mean, we've had this before, Dave, haven't we? We've spoken about this quite a lot. I mean, Ticketmaster, their own worst enemy.
Yeah, to be fair, artists can opt out of it. Most don't, because they know if the show's going to be popular, prices are going to go up and up and up, and they'll get access to a bigger part. So you can't blame Ticketmaster for all of it.
Oh, go.
But I do blame whoever came up with the concept originally. I know that in a free market, supply and demand sets prices. But when you're advertising something like this, like say, the tickets to start with, the prices were ridiculous. You look at arena shows, you look at outdoor shows these days, they just get unaffordable. But then when you add this sort of palaver in on the top of it, it leaves a sour taste.
Yeah.
I don't care if some of that money's going to charity. It's still more money for the people coining it in the background that just want to sit in the shadows and not get outed. It beggars belief. And to pick up on what James said about Ozzy, and about more Ozzy songs being featured, I've got no problem with them doing the odd Ozzy track or whatever, if they're going to balance that off with doing like a Dio era track. I would have thought that when they got all these bands on and said you're going to do an Ozzy track, you're going to do a Sabbath track, there would have been a list that they would pick from. You can do this, 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 or this. You can't do that. Somebody else has already picked it. And I would imagine that it would have been tracks off the first 6, 7 Ozzy Sabbath albums, maybe with 1 or 2 off of 13. But for Sammy to come along and say that, I mean, I would have thought he would have known better. Why would you pick an Ozzy Osbourne track over a Sabbath track? When you said that Ozzy's going to be doing it, I do hope to God that they're not going to wheel her out and get her singing it with him. It's degenerating, as you said earlier, into an expensive shit show. I'm sure that if you looked at it as a production and as a spectacle for the day, it'll be quite impressive. But if you're going into it looking for something that's really a celebration of Sabbath and people doing it well, you might as well try and cop a listen to the 𝗕𝗍𝗔 album that'll come out afterwards when it goes up on YouTube.
I just can't foresee how this is going to turn out to be any good. If we're getting an Ozzy solo set of 5 songs and then bits and pieces with Sabbath, what's that going to mean? Is that going to mean they're bringing out somebody else to sing a Sabbath song and he might join in here and there where he feels like he can? Well, that's not Black Sabbath, is it? So what's the point?
Yeah. If you want to get anybody to do a Sabbath headline, get Tony Martin in.
Yeah.
Although Tony's not really sharp, is he, these days?
No, but more so than Ozzy.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing that gets me is this: it's a supporting cast of millions, almost. I mean, when's the show going to start? I mean, if it's going to be a case of it's an evening show, then they're going to get like 1 or 2 songs, if that, before they're booted off stage. Next act, is rushed on, 2 songs, booted off stage, next act. And then to say, oh, we've got 18 or 16 supporting artists. I know 𝗬𝗫𝗄 𝗀 from Ghost is meant to be one of them. Now, I mean, an artist like that, you sort of kind of want to listen to him and want him to take his time in some respects. So to sort of say, right, you've got umpteen supporting acts. Then you've got another 16 artists coming on, probably to be with the supporting acts or be with Black Sabbath, which I can't really see. But I mean, this concert's got to start 8 o'clock in the morning otherwise. I mean, it just doesn't seem to be well organised whatsoever.
I think logistically it'll be fun. I think it's what it is your expectations. I don't see a lot of these bands coming on and playing for long.
No.
And I think it'll be that this is your back line. You plug your instruments in here and off you go. There'll be none of this fretting about like you get taking down drum kits and moving this and doing that. It'll all be fixed. So that'll be fine. But it is like then these artists, are they coming in? Are they guesting with other bands? Yeah, 𝗬𝗏 would be interesting to see. But to be honest, would you sooner go and see him fronting Ghost, or would you sooner see him singing a couple of Sabbath numbers? And that which I'd pick.
Oh, hands down, yes, Ghost. And yeah. I don't know, it just seems of how many names can we get on a bill? How many people can we get interested? And like you say, at the end of it all, he's going to be Black Sabbath, literally walking on stage going, hello, we're Black Sabbath, walking off because they've got no time to perform everything. And then, you know, Ozzy being zoomed right here, left and everywhere in a flying, motorised, whatever chair. It just smacks of stupidity.
The thing is, with Sharon Osbourne as well, I wouldn't even be 100% Ozzy would even be there. I could see him turning around and saying, oh, he's too ill, so he's a hologram or something like that, you know, because that's the sort of shit she'd do.
Or he's projected onto a screen at back.
Yeah. Live via satellite from his bedroom. Yeah, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah. There are obviously people out there that are excited by this.
Oh, yes.
And we're perhaps a bunch of jaded old men who are cynical and have seen this too many times before. And if anybody's going along and are looking forward to it, I hope you have a great day.
Yes.
I hope that you enjoy your £75 t-shirt and your £18.50 pints of beer. It's a spectacle rather than a show.
Yes.
And it's that balance between where does it become a pure show and where does it become a pure spectacle. There's a tipping point somewhere along the lines where spectacle then includes things like car crashes and you get the impression that it's veering more towards that in terms of, you know, I've no doubt that the likes of Metallica, Lamb of God, they'll all come in, they'll plug in, they'll play, and they'll do a good job. But as you said, if you're bringing Metallica over and they're going to get 3 songs, what's the point?
With the Ozzy thing as well, it kind of reminds me, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but they wheel out Frankie Valli from time to time at Jersey Boys, and it's uncomfortable. Because basically, they help him on stage, and he stood there with a microphone with this sort of vacant look in his eyes, miming really unconvincingly, as if he's hitting all those top notes. He doesn't seem to even know where he is. And you look at it, and you're like, he shouldn't be there. They should let him alone. And that's how I feel with Ozzy. We know that he can do his own tours. We know he's not up to it. So this idea of, oh, well, we'll wheel him out in a throne, it's like, one step away from, oh, we'll push him on in an iron lung. One more gig. Just leave him alone.
It does seem to me to strip Ozzy of any dignity he's got left. I do hope I'm wrong, as I say. I mean, he's a lovable character, and I think he's the sort of character that rock and roll's sadly missing a lot of these days. There are far too many sterile people that's got no sense of humour, no sense of fun. That we need every Ozzy that we can get. But the cynic in me says it's just a Sharon Osbourne money grab. Or I believe, technically, is it Ozzy and Tony Iommi own half the Sabbath name each?
I don't know.
So whether that means that Geezer Butler and Bill Ward will be, you know, just paid an appearance fee, I would imagine that a certain amount of the proceeds will go into Black Sabbath coffers. Certain amount of proceeds will go into whoever's promoting it and organising whatever. Well, that's Sharon Osbourne. And then obviously there'll be other vested interests, your Ticketmasters, there'll obviously be Villa, all the vendors and everything else. But I'd like to see a published set of accounts at the end of it, see who's getting what.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing as well it sort of smacks onto is, if it all goes wrong, what happens to the Black Sabbath legacy? Because obviously, you know, things like car crashes, like you say, Dave, they do remain in people's minds for a long time. And, you know, we've got what is arguably one of the mightiest metal groups making what is supposed to be their final appearances. And if it all goes wrong, is it going to tarnish legacies?
I don't think so, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I don't think that your average 50-plus year Black Sabbath fan out there is going to stop listening to Sabbath all of a sudden because they made a bit of a balls up of it. So I don't think in that regards. I think I'm looking at it from the point of view is that this doesn't seem to be a way to go out. Just leave it as it was. As I say, I would like to have seen it. If you're going to do it properly, accepting Ozzy's limitations, bring in people like Tony Martin, bring in people like Vinny Appice, anybody that's involved in Sabbath that's still around and can still do it, and cover the whole thing. Even the stuff that people don't like Never Say Die or Cross Purposes, the albums that are lesser albums. Bring people like that in and, just let's have a celebration. This was Black Sabbath. Whereas what it is this is a celebration of Ozzy's tenure in Black Sabbath. So you counter that, you go back to what you said earlier, James. It does seem to be more about Ozzy than about Sabbath. They seem to be a bit of an afterthought. But I think that whilst they've potentially gone into it at the beginning with, let's say, the best of intentions, I think it's turned out that they've not really had honest intentions.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And as a fan of all eras of Sabbath, I look at this and I can't find a reason to get excited. I don't see Ozzy sounding good if he's singing live. When was the last time he sang live? I just don't see him being able to just wheel on, not stroll on, but wheel on, knock out 5 of his solo songs and then do some bits and pieces with Sabbath. I don't imagine he's spent a great deal of time rehearsing this. So in that respect, I just think that's going to be lame. If, as I suspect, he's miming, that's even worse. Because then what's the point? You literally might as well have had a projection. It's just so people can wave and go, oh yeah, I saw Ozzy Osbourne. He wasn't doing it, but he was there. It's either one of those is a shit outcome. The only way it's going to be a good outcome is if he comes on and sings really well. And I can't see that happening.
Not for any extended length of time. No, I know that they've said 5 songs. Is that 5 songs altogether at the end? Is that 5 songs dotted about? I suspect what are they going to do? They're going to come on and they're going to finally encore with Paranoid. We're cast of 20 vocalists just to cover up any inadequacies on Ozzy's front. As I say, none of this seemed to be Ozzy's doing to me. No. We know the power behind the throne is. The more I analyse it, the just more cynical I get. And when you, like you say, you factor in all those silly ticket prices, the number of people that's playing, this is going to happen, this is not going to happen, no, we're going to do this, we're not going to do that. Ozzy, we're going to fly Ozzy in on a hovering jumbo jet or whatever else that stupid idea they want to come up with. It goes from the ridiculous to the even more ridiculous. I wouldn't even say sublime. I don't think it was ever at the sublime stage. But as I say, at the end of the day, people want to go. If they have a good time, great. It's just I don't see it being my idea of what would be a good gig and a good time.
No. The only thing I could think of being a positive is if a band takes the show by the scruff of its neck, like Queen did at Live Aid, or like Extreme did at Freddie Tribute, and people come away who maybe didn't know that band before and went, Jesus, they were good. That's the only sort of upside I can see coming out of this.
Yeah.
Don't see any names on that list, though, that people who were there won't already know, and I don't imagine a certain somebody will allow that to happen.
Perhaps not, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I suspect that we're going to find out on the 5th of July, aren't we? By the 6th of July, hopefully all the reviews will be out and we'll be proved wrong and it'll be a masterclass from on and off the stage. But like you say, there's quite a few points there where there has to be questions raised. There has to be issues that are looked at. But what's going to happen, honestly, we won't know. I agree with Dave. I hope everyone that does go has a great time. I hope it's a great success. I really do, because like I say, I mean, Black Sabbath, we all know Black Sabbath. We've grown up with Black Sabbath. I just hope that it doesn't tarnish any reputations or that, anything happens on the day that comes back to bite people. But like we said, we know that this business is unpredictable at the best of times, and especially when you've got a cast of what appears to be thousands all vying for some kind of stage time, and then will Ozzy perform? Will Ozzy not? Will Black Sabbath perform? Will they not? Will Bill be able to do it? Blah, blah, blah. We'll just have to wait and see. But if you've got your feelings, if you've got your thoughts, if you're going, let us know below. What are you hoping to see? What would be the ideal thing for you? What are you hoping doesn't happen? Again, let us know. It's all debate. It's what we want to hear. And especially want to hear your opinions if you're going. I mean, it's not a case of us three are jealous and bitter because we're not going. We just have decided we don't want to, but fair play to those of you that are. But let us know. Let's see what happens. Right then, after that debate, let's have a bit of light-hearted shenanigans. That is the lyrics game. The lads love this.
Oh, God.
Yeah, just listen to those cheers. Yeah, maybe not. Yeah. Anyway, we're still going to do it. So, yeah. I'm going to give both chaps some lyrics from their chosen fields, and we'll see if the little grey cells are active and if they can name both artist and song. James, you're up first for this, and your starting one is this. Well, I'm running down the road, trying to loosen my load. I've got 7 women on my mind.
That is... Give me a second. Take It Easy by the Eagles.
Take It Easy by the Eagles, that's right. Well done. 7 women on my mind. Jesus. I can't even manage with one. Well done, mate. Yep, so there's the first one. And here's your second one. Sweet child in time, you'll see the line. The line that's drawn between good and bad.
Don't need to think about that one. That is Deep Purple, Child in Time.
Oh, he's on fire today, ladies and gentlemen. 2 out of 2.
Ugh.
Well done. Right, bonus point, James. Deep Purple is often credited as one of the pioneers of heavy metal and hard rock. Alongside Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, they're considered part of a legendary trio. What nickname is commonly given to this trio of bands that helped define early heavy metal?
Holy Trinity?
Yeah. Oh, the Holy Trinity. No, it's not. You're very close.
The Unholy.
The Unholy Trinity. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The Unholy Trinity of British hard rock, stroke heavy metal. So close, but no. 2 out of 2. Though I'll tell you one thing. That was on fire. Was that right, Dave? Can you match him?
I doubt it. The old Grey Matters buggered off years ago.
Okay, Dave. Here are your 2. Your starting one is: Can you feel that? Shit.
No idea.
Down with the Sickness from Disturbed.
Okay.
Right then. So your second one. Here we go. I'm the man whose name you love to hate. I can eat your soul and leave you crying for more.
Sounds Alice Cooper, but no, I'm not sure. Not sure, Pete. No.
I was going to say, I thought you had it there. Judging from the look on your face, no, it's Painkiller by Judas Priest.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm glad those were those questions and not mine. I wouldn't have got either of them either.
I was going to say the rock experts were on this one, but your bonus question, Dave. Judas Priest is known for influencing countless metal bands with their iconic sound and image. In 1980, they released an album that marked a turning point in their career, showcasing a more streamlined heavy metal sound and introducing the legendary metal gods persona. What was the name of this album?
British Steel.
British Steel, yeah, of course. Spot on. I thought you'd get that one, to be fair, because I know that you are a Priest fan. So, yeah, well done.
Yeah, but surprisingly, not so much a British Steel.
Yeah.
Never was a British Steel fan, particularly. 2 great tracks and 8 a camp Gumby metal. Don't do it for me.
Fair enough.
Listen to 𝗬𝗎𝗔 Vengeance or Killing Machine, the one that came before.
Okay.
They're much better, much more Priest. But, I know that I'm in the minority, and this could be one of the unpopular opinions bit for later on.
What a segue, because funny enough, up next is Unpopular Opinion, which is our newest segment. So as a social media manager, I like to roam around the wilderness and wastelands of forums and Facebooks, X's and Instagrams to find the dozy, the dopey, and the damn right daft. I came across this pearl, and Dave's going to love this one. Black Sabbath, yes, them again, were a spent force after Ozzy left. James, unpopular opinion or the honest truth?
Definitely an unpopular opinion, because after Ozzy left, in comes Ronnie James Dio and they deliver Heaven and Hell, which is one of the greatest rock albums of all time. So not really a spent force in that respect. Now, if I was to go to add my own unpopular opinion, I would say the follow-up Mob Rules is a lot weaker than I think most people say. I don't think it's anywhere near Heaven and Hell in terms of quality. I think it dips in the second side. But that aside, most bands would be pretty happy if they released the album Mob Rules, just because of the sheer mammoth quality of Heaven and Hell that I think it comes off unfavourably. And as I've said before, I thought the one album and 2 they did with Ian Gillan was well done and had some real good moments on it. The album with Glenn Hughes was more of a 𝗀𝗍𝗄𝗯𝗃 solo album that got the Sabbath name stuck on it, and the less said about that, the better, until Ray Gillan came in anyway. But then Tony Martin turns up, and they did some really, really good work with Tony Martin, and I'm very pleased to see that ever since they did the remixes of the Tony Martin era, people started to reevaluate and go, actually, there's some really good stuff. Oh, in some cases, I never listened to that era, but I'm going to start now. And they're figuring out that they actually missed out on some absolutely killer songs, which is very much what kept the Sabbath name going. So, yeah, to say that Sabbath was spent force after Ozzy, I think there's a good 6-7 albums that would say bollocks to that.
Right. Before we unleash Dave, because I know he's chomping at the bit here, he's been practically eating his furniture, just grab hold of something, James, because I think we're going to have a whirlwind of an answer coming. So go on, Dave. Unpopular opinion?
It's an opinion that there's maybe certain writers at our magazine might have had. But no, I mean, as James has alluded to, it's absolute rubbish. To be honest, Sabbath were done before Ozzy left. Ronnie James Dio arriving sort of helped rejuvenate them, and then, as you said, they delivered an absolute classic. Is Mob Rules as good as Heaven and Hell? Pound for pound, yes, probably. But it doesn't get the same plaudits as Heaven and Hell, simply because it came afterwards. And because they didn't top Heaven and Hell, it's not viewed in the same sort of light as you get from, let's say, for example, from the first Rainbow album to Rising. But yeah, I'd agree. I think that I don't know why people have got this entrenched into the mind that Black Sabbath is all about Ozzy, unless they're just buying into the publicity that's going around at the moment, has been put around for quite a few years. Black Sabbath was really all about Tony Iommi's riffs. Everything else beyond that was kind of incidental to a greater or lesser degree. And did Tony Iommi stop writing great riffs after Ozzy left? Of course he didn't. He stopped writing classic riffs a couple of albums before Ozzy went, but then when Dio came in, as I said, and rejuvenated them, and he's continued to do that. He did it with Seventh Star. There are some absolutely fantastic riffs on there. It didn't have the best of productions, but it consistently hold its own with most albums in the Sabbath back catalogue, in my opinion. If we want to be purists about it, did Sabbath have any more to say after Masters of Reality or Sabotage in terms of defining the genre? Probably not. But that doesn't make anything that came after, or at least say to me, that they were a spent force, that they were done. I think they had peaks and troughs, like most bands. You look at Purple, you look at 𝗕𝗵, you look at Aerosmith, all sorts of bands that have lasted that 30, 40, 50 years. They're all going to have their ups and downs. So, no, I mean, I think whoever came up with that ridiculous comment needs a bit of a slap.
It might have been Sharon Osbourne.
It might well have been, yeah.
Yes, you never quite know. Okay then, chaps. So to put you on the spot, Dave, the best Black Sabbath lineup, in your opinion?
Best Black Sabbath lineup, in my opinion? Heaven and Hell. Absolutely Heaven and Hell. In terms of my point of view. That's my favourite Sabbath album. It's my favourite period of Sabbath. But I have to acknowledge that the original Sabbath defined what was heavy metal far more than the Dio era did in terms of actually pushing genre.
James, same question to you.
I would agree that you've got to say the original foursome is the one that started it all, the one that defined it, the one that the vast majority of the classics belong to. My personal favourite lineup is actually a tie. I can't separate the Heaven and Hell lineup from the lineup of Tony Martin, Tony Iommi, Cozy Powell, and Neil Murray. I mean, what a quartet that is. That's considered like the lesser Sabbath. Any band would be delighted to have those four guys in it. So that either of those two lineups, I think, are brilliant. The only sort of differential there is I would say that Geezer Butler's a more thunderous bassist than Neil Murray, but Cozy Powell's a more thunderous drummer than Vinny Appice. So kind of evened out. But either one of those lineups was just a hard rock sort of heavy metal beast. There's no weak link at all. And of course, you've got Jeff Nichols floating around in the background, who was very important and never gets mentioned very much.
Very true. So, listeners, again, the gentlemen have had their say on this unpopular opinion. What do you think? Were Black Sabbath spent after Ozzy left? Or, as the gentlemen have suggested, that's a load of bollocks, basically? So tell us, drop down the answers in the comments. Let us know. Now it's time for these chaps to try and convince us all to flush a pet peeve of theirs down the rock and metal music crapper. Think Room 101, but with a rock and metal twist. And think it's also another session for these guys to have a bit of a rant and a rave. First up today is Dave, and his piece of flotsam he wants to send swirling away. He's going to reveal now, and hopefully it'll be a damn good rant. Go on then, Dave.
We've probably talked about this before, but I'm getting increasingly sick of multiple disc reissues of classic albums. It's getting to the point where it's absolutely ridiculous. Celebrating 30 years, 35 years, 40 years, and all they're doing is they're adding discs every time. But where's all this material coming from? Have we got two cockroaches farting in the control room or bonking on the control desk? It's absolutely ridiculous. They add nothing apart from money to the coffers of the people at record companies. It's become an industry in itself, and it's expensive enough with CDs. When you start getting into vinyl realms, it gets absolutely bloody ridiculous. Who are these people that are buying all of these? Where are they getting their income from? If you've got a great album from back in the day, you want to celebrate it, maybe on its 25th anniversary or something like that, but that doesn't seem to be enough. We have a deluxe edition, then we have a deluxe plus edition, then we have an ultimately deluxe edition. And all they keep doing is keep rehashing the same sort of stuff, adding little bits here and there to it, and charging people an arm and a leg. I question how much the original artists are getting at a lot of these, particularly seeing as how a lot of the masters and are all owned by record companies and have probably been stolen half a dozen times since. But it's also detracting from new music. Well, it's exactly the same with the Sabbath gig. If you're going to pay £800 to go see Sabbath at Villa Park, how many more gigs are you going to afford this year? Would you have been far better saving your £800 and spending £30 here and £20 there and going seeing some up-and-coming bands? It's an industry that has appreciated it's in its death throes, and it's just trying to milk out of people who care as much money as it possibly can before they wake up and smell the coffee. And it needs to stop. It's doing nothing to promote new music, in my opinion.
There you go. Yeah. I think we can flush that down the crapper. I think that's a valid point. I mean, yes, there is lots of bloody anniversaries. I mean, 25 and 50, I can understand. This 40-year one always bamboozles me. I mean, what's so special about 40 years? Never quite figured that one out.
It's 35, it's 30, it's 29 and a half. I mean, at what point do you stop?
Yeah, exactly. It just... Yeah, because I know you celebrate wedding anniversaries, but it's usually the 25, the 50s, and the 75, isn't it? The 40s and...
Yeah. Well, let me give you two examples. Next year, it's 40th anniversary of Hysteria in 1987. We've already had deluxe editions of these. So what's coming next year? You can see it coming.
God, yes. Yeah, it does make you wonder, doesn't it?
Here's one for you then, Dave. So when Thin Lizzy did Live and Dangerous one, and I know you bought this, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? And they released all the shows they'd recorded that made up what was Live and Dangerous. And the same thing's just about to happen with Status Quo's live one.
Yeah.
So, I know you bought that. So, have you, as somebody who's a big Live and Dangerous fan, played all the individual shows and felt that was an upgrade to what there was before? Or do you just think it's like, here's 4 shows that sound a lot like what I used to have?
I think it's one of them rules where there are always exceptions.
Right.
And I think with live albums, particularly like that, it was fascinating to hear the shows where the stuff was actually picked from and how it was pieced together. There are, I think was it the second night in Philadelphia or something like that? It's probably better than Live and Dangerous itself.
Yeah.
There are some really fantastic performances. I mean, there's a spread of about 18 months of these shows. They weren't all taken from the same tour. I did the same with the UFO Strange in the Night a few years ago when that came out. But I am very choosy. And like you say, I think that whether it gravitates towards those classic live albums, because I probably do the same with the Quote one, but there's a market for it at the right time. But as I said, what really gets me is it's not even now. Some of them are putting deluxe issues of things out that were released 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So do we have a 5-year anniversary, a 10-year anniversary, a 15-year anniversary? For fuck's sake, I've spent my money. Tell me something new, something different.
Well, that's the quandary I found myself in, because I'm a huge 𝗀 fan, and I've been sent the stream of the live album with all like the various versions, and it sounds great, but I'm like sat there thinking, do I need to buy this when I already have live? Do I need all the shows? And I'm not sure I do. I'm not sure I think that having several shows is better than having one compiled show.
Yeah, I think as a collector, it's things like that from which, as I say, particularly live albums. I think it's a nice historical curio. It's a nice, but what I don't get is that they're releasing this deluxe back catalogue album after album after album after album, and you're thinking, they're aiming a lot of this at the vinyl market, which is absolutely stupid prices. The CDs are ridiculous enough, but where are people getting the money from? Where are they once they've got these things? If they're assuming that somebody who buys a Doc and reissue or a deluxe disc from 𝗙𝗽𝗃 or whoever, where are they going to put all these things once they've spent all that money? It just particularly if they've got the originals, it just seems to me it's not aimed at attracting new fans, because it won't. B, then recompensing the artists originally who perhaps didn't get the fair shake of the dice that they should have got. It just seems to me about putting money in record companies' coffers. Yeah. That's the wrong way to approach music, in my opinion. Especially
when, like you say, a lot of the extras that they add, relatively worthless, like instrumental versions. Yeah. That's just the version without the vocal in there. That's literally all you've done. Or monitor mixes. Why would I want monitor mixes? I want the mastered one, thanks.
Yeah. I mean, what I could have mentioned as well was all these. You get the tour editions. You get an album that comes out, then 6 months later, you get, there's a tour edition. There's 3 extra tracks. Now that really pisses me off, because the people who are the fans would have bought the original when it came out. So now what you're expecting them to do is to buy it again, and that doesn't seem the way to treat your fans.
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, me too. Well, I think we can safely say that's flushed away. So down the crapper you go. Right then, James, your turn to open up your musical cincture. Take that as you want, and drop wanted log. So off you go, my friend.
Okay, so I'm going to bring up my old friend Ronnie Romero, and I don't want to pick on him, but he's really upset me. So what he's done is, as we all know, he's in far too many bands. I think we wouldn't be alone in saying that. For example, I saw a clip of Lynyrd Skynyrd live, because they've signed to Frontiers to release a live album, and one of the comments, and it wasn't me, before anyone asks, the first comment, it just says, "Can't wait to hear Ronnie Romero singing Sweet Home Alabama," because that's basically what happens. He's just involved in everything. And when you think about it, basically, prior to Ritchie Blackmore selecting him, very few people knew who he was. And then on the back of that, he's then been in, like a dozen bands. I wrote them down because I can't actually remember them all. Lords of Black, Ferryman, Elegant Weapons, Intelligent Music Project, Michael Schenker Group, Vandenberg, Sunstorm, all these different things he's been doing. And like I said, I don't begrudge anybody making a living, but what he's saying and what he's doing are two very different things. So on the one hand, he's saying he wants to stand on his own 2 feet as an artist, and then he's joining a band, singing other people's songs, lasting maybe 1 album, 1 tour, moving on to another band, doing the same again, comes in to do Sunstorm, following on the heels of Joe Lynn Turner, to deliver a bunch of albums that really don't add anything to the Sunstorm legacy except just keeping it going. And this is all because he was in Rainbow. And when you actually break it down, he wasn't. Nobody can claim what he was in was Rainbow. It was Ritchie Blackmore, the rhythm section from Blackmore's Night, and Jens Johansson. And they played a half dozen shows. That's not Rainbow. There was never an album. There was never a world tour or anything like that. In terms of being a member of Rainbow, he hasn't really written anything with them. The only things they recorded was a dreadful cover of Black Sheep of the Family, a dreadful cover of I Surrender, which was the exact same track that Blackmore's Night recorded, and they just swapped Candice's vocal out for his, and 1 original song called Waiting for a Sign, which nobody remembers. And that's it. So that, to me, does not make you a member of Rainbow. by that, if you was to argue that that does make you a member of Rainbow, then Candice Night was a member of Rainbow, because not only has she appeared on an album and a tour, she wrote on an album. So she's actually got more claim to be a member of Rainbow than he has. But on the strength of that, he's had all these different gigs. And I like, if you want to make a name for yourself, do so. But to be a solo artist, he made, 2 or maybe 3 albums of nothing but covers. All on the strength of, he's that guy out of Rainbow, 𝗬𝗁𝗀 Michael Schenker. And I'm like, he's the worst Rainbow singer there's been. I think that's a given. He's not as good as 𝗕𝗫. He's not as good as Joe Turner. He's not as good as Graham Bonnet. I don't think he's as good as Dougie White. He did an all right job, but he seems to have got it into his head that he's like the be-all and end-all when it comes to vocalists. And we're all desperately wanting him to put his stamp on these different songs. All of the covers he's recorded, I don't think there's a single one of them where he's actually eclipsed the original. He's either equaled it or fallen short. He's never beaten it. And his latest thing, which has really got my goat, is he's now touring what's called Queen Classics, where he's going round sort of like the Eastern Bloc countries with a band, which is little more than a pub band, and a string quartet playing Queen songs. And I heard him do 5 of these, and I was appalled by what I heard. But what got me was the introduction. The level of delusion is just insane. And I've written it down because I don't want to paraphrase it. I want to nail this. He's described as the best voice to appear on the rock scene this century and the first vocalist since Freddie Mercury to be able to sing the songs at the level Freddie intended. Well, I think Adam Lambert would argue with that for a start.
Absolutely.
I think Paul Rodgers would argue with that for a start. And I listened to him sing these 5 songs. He did The Show Must Go On, and he was... I won't bury him. He did it all right. He did it better than Brian May, probably better than Roger Taylor, but not as good as John Miles, and not as good as Paul Rodgers. And then I heard him do Radio Gaga, and that was like karaoke level. And then he had a go at 1 Year of Love, and that was, I actually burst out laughing at that because he was trying so hard to be Freddie Mercury and falling so short. And I'm sat there watching this abomination thinking, if you want to stand on your own 2 feet, what is the point of this? It's another cash-in. And it gets me that he's swanning around thinking we all want to hear his voice on these songs, like he's Tom Jones, like he's bringing something to the table. He's not. If you want to stand on your own 2 feet, go out and tour your own material. And even when he was doing that, he played the Underworld. And I checked his set list. He played 13 songs. This is, bearing in mind, it's to tour his solo album. In his 13-song set list, he played 6 original songs, 2 𝗕𝗫 covers, 2 Rainbow covers, and his encore was 3 Deep Purple songs. Why is he doing Deep Purple songs? He wasn't in Deep Purple. I have legitimately spent more time in the company of Deep Purple than he has. So what is he doing Deep Purple songs for? What is he doing Queen songs for? If he wants to make it on his own, do your own songs, mate. So please, Ronnie, leave the covers alone. I want to flush the covers down the toilet. If you want to be known as a serious artist, make some of your own music.
Wow. I mean, honestly, say what you feel, mate. So I think we better flush Ronnie down the 𝗓𝗄𝗃 pretty quickly, otherwise James is going to get angry. And you wouldn't like him when he's angry.
Absolutely not.
Go on, Dave, what are you going to say?
I think that, to be fair to him...
Oh, no.
I think his best work is to me, he still is with Lords of Black. The partnership he's got with Tony and Ando seems to work really, really well. The unfortunate thing is that's a Spanish band that's not got the profile that he got with Rainbow. Without wishing to pass comment on his career choices and who he works with, I suspect that a lot of that is driven by what the label have said. You need to sing on this, you need to sing on that, we need a vocalist for this. Rather than, so he's diluted what he's done. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, see, I was sick of hearing the Yawn covers. They were the same sort of thing. What do they add to classic rock tracks? Okay, they do it in their own way, but do I want to hear it? Would I pick to listen to that over listen to the original? Absolutely not. And it's the same with Ronnie there. So yeah, I would absolutely say kick all the cover stuff into touch. Stand on your own 2 feet. Start writing your own material or work with people who write their own material. Maybe take it from... He's not got a bad voice. He's not the best singer I've heard.
No.
In the last, he's certainly not the best singer to come in the last 2 decades. The last 2.5 decades of this century is an absolutely preposterous thing to say. But I think he's, for want of a better description, his ego has sort of, he's in danger of doing exactly the same that he did to Jorn, exactly the same that he did to Malmsteen. I think he's starting to believe his own press a little bit too much, and needs a bit of a reality check. And to be fair to him, there are plenty more out there that are the same.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, were you using the Jorn example? At least when Jorn was doing his covers, he didn't just do the standard rock songs. He was doing, I'll do a rock version of a Kate Bush song, or I'll take Needles and Pins that Smokey made famous, and I'll do a hard rock take on that, as well as the odd Deep Purple track or whatever. Whereas the Ronnie Romero stuff, it seems to be like the low-hanging fruit. It's almost like a karaoke checklist. I'm a rock singer, so I need to do a song by these guys and a song by those guys. And hey, check that out. He's not really adding anything. He's not putting his own spin on it. He's not rearranging them. And he's not eclipsing the originals. So what are they for?
I would agree with you. But what I would say to that is that I would doubt he picked them.
Maybe not.
I would doubt that he had any more involvement than A, sticking his name on, and B, would be paid for a session. It's just a case of somebody deciding cynically, you know what, we put minimum effort into this, throw it out with the load more, and at some point, some shit's going to stick to a wall.
I'm assuming he's picking the songs in his set list, though.
Well, you've got to assume so.
Because the other night, he was playing bloody Separate Ways by Journey, and I'm like, why? Why would anybody want to even try that? Yeah.
Best version I ever heard of that were House of Shakira when they did God's Way Back When. Did a fantastic version of that.
Yeah.
But that's an aside. But no, I tend to agree with you. And I would widen it to be on Ronnie. Stand on your own 2 feet, whoever you are. Make your own music. Stop. If you want to trade on somebody else's glories, become Jane McDonald and get on a cruise ship.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I might have been slightly throwaway, but somebody like Tom Jones has a voice where he can record a song by somebody else and he can make it his own because he's Tom Jones. And that always feels like how Romero comes across. He's like, oh, well, now I'm putting my stamp on it. I'm like, you're not that great, mate. You're, like you said, you're not a bad singer. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's crap by any means, but he's nowhere near as good as his press releases say he is.
Yeah. And your big interview for next issue, James.
Yeah, my first question is, who do you think you are?
Oh, you can always guarantee that Ronnie Romero was going to get James's blood hot and burning. And that's why we've done the musical punishment for James. So if you miss up, my friend, it's Ronnie Romero on repeat for 24 hours for you.
Lovely stuff. Can't wait.
Right. Finally, we've reached the end of this podcast. And yes, Ronnie Romero will be going down the crapper at speed, mainly because I don't want James absolutely killing me next time. But we've come to the end. Like I say, we've got enough time now for the gentlemen to scan those memory banks, and hopefully they're running up-to-date software and not Windows 3.1, and come up with the correct answer that I set at the beginning of the show. Now, to recap, that was, which rock or metal group have had the most #1 albums in the Billboard charts, which is the American album charts? Now, like I say, the answer is actually the Beatles, but we're not considering them because of the niches and various whatnots. So the choices were Led Zeppelin, Metallica, the Rolling Stones, U2, and the Eagles. Dave, go on then. Give us your guess first.
I've discounted Metallica because beyond 1 or 2, I can't imagine that Metallica's hit the top of the Billboard charts with anything beyond the Black Album, if I'm honest. U2, they're big-ish in America. I find myself coming back to, it's a toss-up between the Eagles, Zeppelin, and the Stones, because they're all big draws over there. I'm ultimately drawn towards Led Zeppelin, if I'm honest, because how big they were in the States in the 70s, you really can't imagine. So I'll go with Zeppelin.
Okay, so Dave's choice is Led Zeppelin. James?
I was on a similar path. I was like, it's not U2. Like, I just couldn't see it being U2. And I don't think Metallica's had enough successful albums. So I was like, I've stripped it down to the same between the Stones, the Eagles, and Zeppelin. I know the Eagles are huge there. I know Led Zeppelin were just like crazy big, but only for a relatively short period compared to some of these other bands on here. It's like the Stones. You look at the length of their career, and obviously the Eagles, they split up and then hell froze over and they got back together again, which Zeppelin never had. They had this one period and then that was it. So I was looking at it, I was like, were you saying the Beatles, they sold like 1 billion records because that's all people did back then, and Elvis was another one. And then I'm looking at the Stones and I'm thinking, well, they would have been in that sort of bracket, but they're still going. The Beatles and Elvis, that ended long ago, and the Stones, I mean, their last album did well over here. Potentially it could have done well over there. So even though my instinct was saying I'm looking more at Zeppelin, I'm going to play the wild card and say the Stones.
Okay, right. Okay, so James is the Stones, Dave is Zeppelin. Right then, Led Zeppelin have had 7 number ones. You were both right to discount Metallica. They've had 6.
I don't think it'd be that many, to be honest.
The Rolling Stones, which James's choice, have had 9.
Okay.
U2, 8. And the Eagles, who you both said were a possibility, 6. So, James, you've taken the lead. The Rolling Stones has given you that point.
You had me there. I thought the Eagles were going to top it the way you was building
I thought the Eagles were going to top it, yeah.
I have no idea you two were that successful over there.
According to Billboard.com, they were. Right. So
again, though, is it one of those where you have to wonder? Is it that the bands who have had the more longevity and are still active now and putting stuff out, it takes a lot less to get a number 1 album now than it did in the 70s?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. It's a good point. Now, yes, the actual answer was the Beatles. They've topped it by quite some way. But for a bonus point, James and Dave, can you tell me how many number 1s they've had on the US Billboard charts? Dave, I'll let you go first.
Albums?
Yes.
I'm assuming here that we're going beyond their actual studio albums and going into compilations and things like that.
You just said albums on the Billboard.
Albums. 15.
15. 15 for Dave. James?
You said they've eclipsed them by quite a way, and the ones we were naming were getting like 8 or 9. I'll double it then, 20.
You bastard. It's actually 17, so you're both straight down the middle. Yes, 17 number 1s. I mean, obviously, like I say, we discounted it because this niche thing, they're sort of the old-fashioned rock and roll, which doesn't really fit into our niches, so that's why I discounted them. But 17, that is not half bad. I mean, funny, if you look at all the other album charts around the globe, and they've pretty much done every single one. So, you know, if I ever do one of these questions and include the Beatles, and you know exactly who to go for, because chances are they've probably done it. But yeah, well done, James. 3-2 in the lead.
Happy with that.
Well, you might come back as well, if I remember right. Didn't Dave go 2-0 up as well? And you've absolutely
go 2-0 up, yeah. We've still got extra time though. We've got Man United time to play, yeah.
Time, yeah. Well, we've got plenty more podcasts to go, so you know you've got time, Dave. Always nice to let the youngsters have their moment and then storm back and just make them
give them a clap. Absolutely, yeah.
And because I won not only the lyrics game and the quiz this time, I'm going to name this my podcast of the year.
in May, yeah.
In May.
next time it'll be that one, and next time it'll be that one.
Pyrotechnics is proudly sponsored by Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine. 164 pages packed full of interviews, reviews, and features all about your favourite genres of music. Our latest edition is available from our website, fireworks-magazine.com, or visit your local WH Smiths or McCall's. UK subscriptions are now just £32 for 4 issues. Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine, for enthusiasts, by enthusiasts.
So before we go, just a quick reminder that issue 111 will be on pre-sale soon. And as a wee little exclusive, we're going to feature interviews with Terrier, Luke Morley and Lita Ford. Not going to give you any more sneak previews at the moment because Dave will kill me, basically. But there are features to blow your socks off and a gluttony of reviews, including a Ronnie Romero one that we desperately tried to keep James away from. Also, as a nod to our CEO, please check out his new album, Sign of the Wolf. If you like your Dio-style heavy metal, this album is right up your street. We've heard it, agreed that it's brilliant. Bruce has written the songs, and it's available from Escape Music Limited and Amazon as a CD or vinyl. Also, just to remind you that Tower of Fire and Night Train in Bradford is approaching fast. 2 nights kicking off on the 27th of June when 𝗃𝗃 will be playing an acoustic set followed by a meet and greet. Tickets for that are limited to 150, I believe. And then on Saturday, it's a main event with First Light, 𝗵𝗵 𝗔𝗍𝗄𝗃, 𝗕𝗏𝗄𝗃, Midnight City, and 𝗘𝗵𝗄𝗃 again, playing his last ever electric gig in the UK. As ever, head on over to our website, fireworks-magazine.com/events for more details. Right, I'm knackered now. I'm going for a lie down. But before I do, I'm going to say goodbye, obviously, to my co-hosts, Dave and James. So, Dave, thank you very much for joining us on this episode.
Yeah, thanks for joining us again, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next time.
And James, under the threat of Ronnie Romero, if we don't turn up next time, again, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Happy to be here as always.
I'm Pete, and this has been Pyrotechnics. We will be back more regularly, I promise. As we now know, we know what's going to happen to any of us if we break this promise. But until next time, keep listening, keep enjoying the rock and metal music out there. And above all, please, everybody, take care.
All views heard in this podcast are from the individual and do not necessarily represent those of Fireworks Rock and Metal Magazine.